Joe Clinton Trump. I will be voting for Joe Clinton Trump. All memes aside, guys. A lot of you guys have been making videos or discussing this on Twitter, Facebook, or whatever. The election, it's tomorrow. And finally we can deal with this hellhole of an election the way it's meant to be. And that's, by actually voting. And if you're not voting tomorrow, I understand why you wouldn't want to vote, but hear me out. Because a lot of you guys know, especially if you follow me on Twitter, if you know me personally, I'm not actually voting for Joe Clinton Trump. I voted already for Gary Johnson. I sent my ballot in a couple weeks ago, and I got a notice from Hamilton County, Ohio Board of Elections that my ballot was sent successfully, and it counted. So we're all good to go on my end. Now, this video isn't much of me defending my voting for Gary Johnson, more of an explanation. And before I get into things, let me just remind you guys, these are my opinions. You are completely entitled, and you probably should have your own opinions, and if you disagree with me, that's excellent, that's great, that's what I encourage, because this is something that's been lacking from our discourse, is disagreements that are civil, right? This video is my reasoning for voting for Gary Johnson. I will explain why I do not defend or will support Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, and why I didn't vote for Jill Stein, the other third-party candidate. So let's start out with why I'm voting for Gary Johnson. I chose to vote for Gary Johnson back in February after the Super Tuesday elections. I've been a registered Republican up until July when I deregistered myself as a Republican, and I officially became an independent when I signed up to vote for this election in November. I did not vote in the primaries because it's very hard to vote in the Ohio primaries here in Japan, and plus the Ohio primaries are in late March, early April, so by that time pretty much everyone knew it was going to be Hillary versus Trump. So I supported Rand Paul for most of the primaries. I agreed with about 70% of his positions. Most of the stuff I disagree with him on were stuff related to the environment, stuff related to foreign affairs, and his position on vaccines I disagree with. Even though I agree with approximately 80 to 90% of Gary Johnson's positions, according to all those political surveys people would take, a similar thing. I don't like Gary Johnson's opinion on the environment, and I also don't agree with Gary Johnson's opinions on vaccines. However, I knew that if Rand Paul was nominated, he would have had a better chance at winning the election than Gary Johnson. I knew going into this election season that Gary Johnson needed to have a lot of media exposure. He would have had to have access to the debates and everything in order to win. And now that this is over, I know that it's pretty much not going to happen, Gary Johnson getting the election. Unfortunately, a lot of my libertarian friends are stuck in this mindset of he's going to win, he's going to get it and everything like that. And he's not going to get it. It's going to be quite obvious. At this point, me voting for Gary Johnson might sound like a waste, but hear me out, okay? A vote for a third party is not a waste of a vote. A vote for a third party is not voting for Hillary or Trump. So a lot of Republicans are saying, Zach, you're voting for Gary Johnson? That's a vote for Hillary Clinton. And a lot of Democrats are saying, you're going to vote for Gary Johnson? That means you're supporting Trump. No, it means my voice, my reasoning, my support, everything is going for Gary Johnson. Okay? That's what that means. So when the statistics come out and show that Gary Johnson got 5, 6, 7% of the popular vote, I'm part of that. I'm part of that statistic. And it shows, if you support a third-party candidate, it shows that you're not supporting the destructive two-party system that we have today that produced such unpopular candidates like Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And I also have to say, if you vote third party, if you vote Jill Stein, or even if you vote for one of the minor parties that are on the ballot, when I got my Ohio ballot, there was 10 people on the ballot for president. Even if you vote for one of them, that's your voice, okay? You're not wasting your vote. You're showing the world where your voice is, okay? That's why supporting a third party is not wasting a vote. And also remember, the Republican Party back in the 1800s, that was originally a third party, and now it's one of the two major parties. If the Libertarian parties get 5% of the vote, they will have access to a lot more stuff than they did this time around. So it definitely is worth it if you support libertarianism to vote Libertarian. That's what Ron Paul says, at least, right? Now, when it comes to Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, both of them do have good parts, but the vast majority of both of them is very negative, and it's something I can't get behind at all. And Hillary Clinton, as a lot of people outside of America have said, I honestly think she should have been prosecuted and put in front of a judge for a lot of things. And Donald Trump, he's still being sued. And I think a lot of what he's done is also prosecutable as well. Like, both of them should be appearing in front of judges for stuff that they've done in the past and stuff that they've continued to do. I do not support continuing the wars in the Middle East. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump both want to do that in different ways. Hillary Clinton likes this, the drone bombings that is making more and more enemies for America, right? And Donald Trump wants to just commit war crimes and destroy families in the Middle East, right? That's not the way of doing things. Also, when it comes to Donald Trump, I don't support him pulling all of the military personnel out of Japan. I know how important the military is to Japan. Contrary to a lot of libertarians here around the world, I actually see a purpose for the military, American military in Japan. I see a purpose. I do think that we should talk to the Japanese and figure out how to make our presence in Japan better. But simply pulling them out and giving Japan nukes is, one, very, very ironic. Two, incredibly stupid. I'm not going to lie. It doesn't make any sense at all. All right? Both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are very nativist. Donald Trump more so. Neither of them are supportive of trade. All right? Both of them have economic policies that will destroy America's economy and destroy America's relationship with amazing, profitable companies around the world that have done so much for America's economy. And as someone who's a foreigner living in Japan, starting a company in Japan, interested in bilateral relations between Japan and America, I have to say that both of their policies of closing the borders for trade are incredibly, one, unethical, and two, just economically unsound. So there's no way I can support either of them when it comes to trade, because it's just, neither of them makes sense. And then finally, Donald Trump's just a repulsive human being. That goes beyond saying. Same with Hillary though. Like, she's done some things that are just outrageous. Now, this is not saying I support anything Bernie Sanders, but like the DNC, they had her just pretty much operating them from the cockpit from the get-go. Like, the DNC knew, okay, this is Hillary's game. Anybody else is going to get kicked out. And they've done so much to just completely sabotage the primary election so Bernie Sanders couldn't win. Now, like I said, I'm not a supporter of Bernie Sanders at all. I think socialism is a myth. That's beside the point. I think Bernie Sanders probably would have won the Democratic primary if the DNC didn't have Hillary's hands in them like puppets, right? The Republicans, obviously, you could tell they were very vocal against especially the establishment Republicans, they were very vocal against their nomination of Trump. I think the Republican Party right now is just being a bunch of pansies when it comes to dealing with Trump. Everyone's afraid to stand up to him. I just wish more and more the Republicans would, from the get-go, have understood that this man is just absolutely repulsive. Now, Jill Stein might seem like a viable option. Like I said, I wish that the debates were between Hillary, Trump, Gary Johnson, and Jill Stein. However, Jill Stein, I don't think she took the campaign seriously. Well, I mean, obviously, neither did Gary Johnson at some points. I think Gary Johnson just kind of joked around too much, where I wish he was serious about the things. And don't get me started about Bill Weld. I'm not going to talk about what he's done recently. That was just horrible. But Jill Stein, her policies are just, they're head-scratching. Especially her opinions on vaccines. She's somewhat anti-science. She's kind of a hippie in a suit, basically. So that's why I couldn't, Jill Stein, there's nothing I really agree with her on, but I would have loved to have seen her on the debate stage with Gary Johnson and Trump and Clinton, right? So that's why I'm voting for Gary Johnson. I agree with a lot of his economic policies. The only thing I disagree with is the tax plan. I agree with shrinking down the government, but I also think that we should not eliminate completely some of the departments that Gary Johnson wants to get rid of. Instead, merge them with different departments to kind of make them more effective. And But actually, get rid of the Department of Homeland Security. We don't need that anymore. Get rid of the Patriot Act. I agree with that. But like, we need the Department of Education, but we need it to be more streamlined, right? That's just the matter of fact right there. So I partially disagree with Gary Johnson on that. But when it comes to legalizing marijuana, I am completely for it. And basically everything else that Gary Johnson has said, I pretty much I can get behind. I can understand. I can support. Libertarians, though, we need to be more appealing. We need to be more accessible. A lot of libertarians, though, they think they're anarchists. They're not anarchists. We are libertarians. There is a position for government. Private entities cannot be building roads. You know, government's there to build roads, ensure public safety, and make sure that companies are not getting too powerful so that they're completely destroying the market and getting their hands in government, right? That's where government intervention is justified, right? And I think that libertarians think that it's just the moment you say intervention, they break out in a rash of hives. Government has its purpose, and libertarians need to realize that. And they need to start creating more sane policies to get onto. And also, we need to come up with more people who are sane. Like, there's a lot of people on the Facebook page I belong to that I completely support. It's called the Skeptical Libertarian. They're pro-science, they're pro-rationality, they're secular, and they are libertarian when it comes to economic policies. They understand the rules of economics and stuff like that. So if you're a libertarian who wants to learn more about it, I suggest that Facebook page, and I'll link their page down below in the description. And I think libertarians need to find someone charismatic from that group of libertarians to be the next nominee for president. Gary Johnson, I don't think he should run anymore. In the 2020 election, I don't think he should run. And Bill Weld definitely should not run. Austin Peterson, I think he would have made a better vice president, but I sometimes think he has a tinfoil hat. And Rand Paul should not. I think Rand Paul is pretty much, he's still a Republican, basically. Like, he's very Christian in some of his views. And until very recently, he very much supported the gay marriage bans in America. So obviously libertarianism needs to be more concise. We as libertarians need to be more unified, and we need to be out there and charismatic, right? We need someone with the energy and charisma and ability to drive up a group of people, especially young millennials, like Ron Paul, but with the politics and the sanity of the ideas in the Skeptical Libertarian Facebook page, right? That's libertarianism, right? So, like I said, this is just what I'm saying. This is what I view, right? This is what I'm looking at. For you guys, if you haven't decided to vote tomorrow and you are libertarian leaning, I definitely think you should vote for Gary Johnson, because it will have a very huge impact on how libertarians can basically impact the world in the coming elections. And if you are completely undecided, you can write in somebody, you can vote for one of the minor third parties. Just get out there and vote. There's stuff that's on the ballot that people need to actually look at and make a choice on, right? For example, on the ballot, I voted for the county commissioner. I voted for state representatives, right? I voted for tax levies, right? There's stuff on there that you need to support and need to vote on, right? So if you haven't voted, go out there and vote tomorrow, right? And if you're abroad, I mean, it might be too late. I don't know. Go check your embassy, right? Go check the consulate. See what you can do. Because every election is important, right? And don't let me or other celebrities like Casey Neistat or whatever tell you who to vote for. Listen to our opinions, of course. This is very important to have a bunch of different opinions coming into your ear. Because the more dissent that you hear, the more it will shape your opinion to be more concise and to be your own opinion. Alright? And I'm no expert on politics myself, obviously, but that's just my viewpoint. Okay? So get out there and vote. And if you're a libertarian, I do strongly suggest you vote for Gary Johnson. And if you are curious about libertarianism, just do some research, right? Even Google Gary Johnson, Google the Libertarian Party, check out the Skeptical Libertarians Facebook page down below. You can have an impact on this election. Alright, so get out there and vote. Thanks for listening. See you all in the next video. Take it easy, guys.